You've probably heard of people being allergic to peanuts, having a lactose intolerance, or getting hay fever. But have you ever heard of someone being allergic to another person? Well, you're about to hear all about it. I married my husband when I was only 19. We were high school sweethearts, just as my parents were, and his parents too. We felt like we were continuing some great family tradition. I had never had a single allergy in my life, which makes what happens that much more surprising and interesting. At first, there were no problems. We bought our first home and started renovating it. We both loved the character of older homes, so that is what we bought, a character home in an old neighborhood. The house had the original hardwood floors, coved ceilings, exposed brick in the kitchen, and the original doorknobs. We threw all our time and money into that house and loved every minute of it. It was 2 years after we moved in that we were finally done with our renos. We felt proud and accomplished. We had saved a ton of money doing everything ourselves. On an average day, while we were enjoying the nice deck we had put on the summer before, I started to sneeze and couldn't stop. I was never a big sneezer, so I assumed I was coming down with a cold. I stayed home from work the next day on account of the fact that I seemed to start sneezing every 5 minutes. After Mike went to work, I started to feel better. My sneezes seemed to stop, and I got some work done from home. I was an editor, so was able to get some manuscripts sent over to review. Towards the end of the day, I was feeling like I had completely shaken my cold. I figured the day of rest did me a lot of good. When Mike walked in the front door, I couldn't believe it. He came over to give me a hug, but I had to cut it short because I had started sneezing again. I sneezed over and over and over again. Over dinner, I said, "I can't believe it. I literally didn't sneeze all day. Then the second you come near me, boom, sneezing fit." Mike thought it was funny and cracked a joke about needing a divorce if I was allergic to him. The sneezing got worse throughout the night. I ended up moving downstairs to sleep on the couch so Mike could actually get some sleep. I phoned in sick the next day too, thinking my cold was back. The same thing happened though, again. As soon as Mike left, the sneezing stopped. I went about my day and ended up going into my office after all. I figured it would be like it was the day before and had a new writer I was supposed to meet with. I felt fine at the office, but was so busy I didn't really have time to wonder why I only seemed to be sick at home. I got home just after Mike and was excited to tell him about the new writer I had met with. It was a divorcee who had written a book about her experience and her choice to leave her husband for a dying man she was in love with. It was quite the story. I was so happy to be her editor and was sure the book would be a success. The writer had a biting wit that made her writing very funny and entertaining. Not many women would leave a marriage with a decent guy with a lot of money for a dying man with no money. Love was love, though. I went home wanting to leap into Mike's arms and hold him tight. I did just that when I walked into the house. But again, I had to pull away as I felt that familiar sneeze fit building in my nose. I moved back from Mike and finished my 12 sneezes before telling him about the exciting new book I was going to be a part of. I could barely get the story out, though. Every 5 minutes, those sneezes seemed to start. Again, I had to sleep downstairs so we could get some sleep. Now, I was starting to really wonder what was going on. Aside from the incessant sneezing, I didn't feel like I had any other cold-like symptoms. I didn't have a stuffy or runny nose, no cough, muscle soreness, just the constant sneezing. I decided a trip to the doctor was in order. The soonest they could get me in was 3 days later, and nothing had changed by that time. I still had the sneezing around Mike, but nowhere else. In fact, it was a hard thing as the doctor couldn't find anything wrong. He asked if I had ever had any allergies, to which I said no. He explained that allergies could develop at any time in life, and that it wasn't unheard of that someone my age could suddenly develop one that would cause incessant sneezing. He said that he would send me for some blood work and request allergy testing. I thought that was a good idea, as we couldn't think of anything else that would cause sneezing. While I waited for the results, nothing changed. It was the same. Around Mike, I sneezed all the time. When we weren't together, I was just fine. When I got the allergy testing results in that said I wasn't allergic to anything, I decided that it had to have something to do with Mike. I went back to my doctor to discuss the results. I told him how the condition seemed to appear when Mike was around. He thought that was interesting. He asked me to check with Mike if he had made any hygiene changes lately. He said to check the laundry detergent he was using, shampoo, deodorant, lotion, pretty much anything and everything. I went home and Mike and I put our heads together to try and come up with anything that had changed since the sneezing had started. We couldn't come up with a single thing. Nothing had changed in the house either. When nothing improved, I decided to go back to my doctor with Mike so he could see I wasn't crazy. As the doctor came into the examination room, Mike and I were waiting anxiously inside, and I was, of course, already sneezing. The doctor patiently waited until I was finished, but another sneeze kept coming round the corner. After what seemed like forever, the sneezing finally stopped, and the doctor said he could see what I was talking about. He pointed out that I hadn't sneezed a single time before. He said, "Let's really test this out." He told Mike to leave the room and come back in 5 minutes. The whole time he was gone, I didn't sneeze once. The doctor went over with me what had been tested with the blood work. We were able to rule out any food allergies, but that only made the situation even more mysterious. When there was a knock on the door, Mike poked his head inside and tentatively entered. As soon as the door closed behind him, I started sneezing again. The doctor smiled and said, "Well, isn't this interesting?" Mike said, "It sure is." He tested it again, and the results were the same. When Mike left the room, the sneezing stopped, but as soon as he came back in, it started again. The doctor stepped out of the room with Mike and asked him if there had been any changes that he could think of. Mike couldn't come up with anything he had changed, and it seemed we were back to square one. The doctor sat down to talk with both of us and said that he had only dealt with the condition he was suspecting once in his career. He told us about a male patient he had treated 10 years earlier that was a similar situation to ours. The man had never been allergic to anything in his life, but suddenly seemed to develop an allergy to his girlfriend. As it turned out, he was allergic to his girlfriend's pheromones. The doctor explained how each person gave off certain pheromones based on their individual body chemistry. The doctor said there wasn't a test that could confirm it, but that was his best guess. We asked him what we should do, and he said that in his other patient, it was simpler as they broke up anyway. We laughed and said, "Well, we're married, so that's not an option, for better or worse." Dr. Fong told us that there was an experimental hormone pill that had been successful in changing the pheromones of animals, but that it hadn't yet been tested on humans. So we decided to give it a try. Dr. Fong told us that it could take up to 3 months to alter Mike's pheromones and that we would have to be patient. Mike started on his hormone pills in January, and by the end of March, a miracle happened. I finally stopped sneezing around him. The doctor said that Mike wouldn't have to take the pills forever and that the changes usually stuck around after the hormones were stopped. Mike stopped the hormones, and thankfully, the sneezing didn't come back. We still laugh about the fact that I was allergic to my husband. But thank God we were able to figure out what it was and solve it. A divorce would have been far more costly than some hormone pills. To watch more animated story videos like this, hit that subscribe button. And tell us in the comments section what you thought about this story.